nurture that initiative to a large extent. Sir, I started my career as an income tax consultant, and therefore I was exposed to ITA. I think all of you will agree that ITA tribunal is the best, and statistics says that almost more than 90% of the cases decided by RTA defense are ultimately approved by the apex court. That's the statistics of the income tax tribunal. Sir, I mentioned to you to enlighten these participants where do you stand as far as the RERA tribunal is concerned in this context, and what do you think? What are the pros, minus, and plus, and how do we take it to that? Because RERA is very, very important statute. We knew the position of MoCA. RERA is going to help and create public opinion. Just now we are discussing institutions should be part of the engagement for the success. So, sir, I will consider this request and throw some light on this aspect. Sir, I now hand over mic to Ramesh Prabhu for conducting that. Thank you. Thank you very much. I welcome each one of you and each of the participants. Today's chief guest, Gautam Chatterjee, Dharmendra Sharma, President of Rotary Club Bombay, Ashwin Bhai CA, Ashwin Shah, Nitin Sampath, Advocate, as well as CA Sunil Sharma and Arun Gupta, and all the participants, of course, Suzar. So we have been conducting this program regularly. I once again welcome each one of you. And now I request the President of Rotary Club Bombay West to enlighten us, and then of course we'll definitely get enlightenment from the views of Gautam Chatterjee. Thank you. Thanks, Ramesh Prabhuji. Good morning, friends. First of all, thank you very much for to be here on a Sunday morning on the rainy day and Ganesh Chaturthi, Visarjan day of the 5th day. So I welcome you all on behalf of Rotary Club of Bombay West. So this is the second oldest club of the district, and Lemon Housing Series 2.0, which is our housing exhibition and conference, which we have been running for last 5 years. This is the 5th year going on. So apart from this, we are into a lot of community service. As you know, this building itself has 2 banquet halls, and we are running a medical center at a very discounted rate. All the services, 109 services are provided to the community. So please spread the awareness, and so maximum people can be benefited. Discounted rates are there, even special mental wellness, skin, pets lab, physiotherapy, and all are just less than half the rate of the market. This coming Wednesday, we are having a special workshop in 7:30 p.m. onwards, where we have recently purchased a defibrillator, which is a heart start machine. So, a cardiologist from Bridge Candy is going to conduct a workshop. So, if anybody is interested, please do come, because we never know that we can become an instrument to save somebody's life. So, not taking much time, I would hand over the proceedings to Ramesh for the session. Yeah.
Good morning, President, my friend Ramesh Prabhu, Anandji, Ashwinji, Sampath, Sharma, and all dear Rotarians. It's a pleasure to be back here speaking on a subject which has been very close to my heart. I recall about 3-4 years back, maybe, I was here, even earlier, when RERA had just been introduced, and I was then requested by the then President that members would like to understand the various nuances of the new Act. As I speak here today, you are aware that RERA, which has been a game-changer legislation in the real estate sector, has just completed 5 years of its implementation. And we all feel proud here in Maharashtra that Maharashtra has been leaders in the implementation of this Act. It is often said in our country that we do have very good legislations, very good acts, but the Act does not remain good because its implementation is usually marred by various problems. So implementation, including the point that you also raised, that when an act is being interpreted by a tribunal or an appellate body, and that interpretation is upheld in the highest forum of justice, then that is also a part of good implementation of the act. And therefore, the whole idea in setting up of this institution called MahaRERA, the Maharashtra Real Estate Regulatory Authority, was certainly that it should be such that the act is implemented in letter and spirit. It is an act of only 92 sections, small act, and whatever is written in black and white is read by all in country. But then ultimately, I would take this opportunity to pinpoint as to what are the fundamental issues that were maybe in those 92 sections, which is not very evidently visible in the writing of the act. Now, the background to this whole thing of bringing in this new act and bringing in regulation in the real estate sector was that this sector, called the real estate sector, is very close to everybody's heart. Each one of us, at some point of time, either we have purchased a home or in our expanding family we are intending to look for that second home for the national growth of the family, or maybe also as a source of small investment if there is some money that is there, whether we should put the money in buying some yellow metal or putting it in mutual fund, or should we go in for something which is more tangible like real estate property, is a thinking that is occupying the thinking process of each one of us. And therefore, this sector, which is very important from the national GDP point of view, contributing 8% to the GDP, very important from the point of view of creating employment in the country, second only to agriculture, a sector on which 250 plus ancillary industries are dependent, cement, steel, paint, and you name it. Each one of these industries will depend on the success of a real estate sector. And most importantly, 77% of the household assets are held in real estate. So, 8 out of 10 rupees that we have at any point of time in this country is actually held in real estate. So, that's the importance of this sector. But in spite of this, there were umpteen number of problems. Maharashtra was fortunate to have a 1963 Act called MoFA, but the implementation of that Act was again marred by various problems, and therefore people never used to get the fruits of the benefit of whatever are their provisions of this MoFA Act. Now, what were the problems? If I have just put it down in a brief, first problem was what I often say, information asymmetry. That means as a home buyer who is trying to put in his life savings, total money that he has into buying an asset, is unaware of the total information that is surrounding the decision-making process of that home, of that project. Something which was most evident in this issue of the supernova, super tech twin towers. The people are not aware or not being made aware consciously by the system of so information asymmetry. Now that was supposed to be tackled first, because when you are buying something and you're not aware of what is happening, of the money that are putting in the project, then I think that right has to be restored to you. Second was financial indiscipline. Money is paid for a particular project, was diverted to magnify or to increase your business in other projects or buying lands, and therefore that ultimately resulted in the project remaining incomplete for a long time, and you are not getting the home in the stipulated time promised by the developer to you. Now, and whenever you had a problem, then you need to get a resolution fast. That was also not available to you. So you had to struggle either to go to a consumer court, which will take you years, or a civil court, which will also take you years, and very complicated. Now, these were the problems that were there in the sector, and therefore something like a RERA was very essential. And therefore, RERA, which came in 2016, was implemented from 1st May 2017, has tried to tackle these issues. To put it in perspective, the 5 issues that the RERA section 92 sections are talking about is bringing in transparency so that the information asymmetry can be removed. And the transparency in what manner? Transparency is not mere lip service. Transparency should be on online disclosures. So if there is online disclosure for any information, you are not dependent. Like in the Supertech case, that the people, the RW there, kept on going to the developer, kept on going to the Noida authorities to find out, ki bhai humko bataiye, what is happening there. Now, if that information is out in the public domain, then obviously, with proper awareness among us, we should be able to know how to access that public domain and get that information. So, information asymmetry removal through transparency and public disclosure is the first most important aspect of RERA, and which has been achieved in Maharashtra to a large extent. Also in many other states, and I hope with a uniform rollout of this act across the country, other states also, which today are maybe a little lagging, should also catch up. And with digital technology, you should be able to put out information in public domain. Second was financially, indiscipline was there. How to come up with brought in fiscal discipline. The monies that are being paid for a particular project will be in a separate account, and that 70% of that money must be used for the construction and can be only used for the purpose of that project. To a large extent, has also tackled the problem of diversion of money to other funds, to other projects. Accountability, because ultimately a person should be held accountable for his acts of omission and commission. Something which he should not do, he does. Something he should do and he is not doing. On both the counts, he should be held accountable. So accountability is another major principle on which the act is based. However, I would have been happier if this accountability could have been extended to all the stakeholders in the real estate chain. It should not be only confined to maybe the developer or the professionals working with the developer. It should be also extended to others, maybe the financial institution, the landowner, and also the officials, the authorities who are responsible for various approvals. If they are not given in time, they should also be held responsible. So accountability was also there. Would you like questions to be taken in between? Or?
Actually,
yes.
This is the expansion of the accountability.
Sorry?
Can you expand on the accountability? How are they accountable? That's not clear.
No, accountability is basically that you have clarity on what is supposed to be done by you. And if you do not do that, then there is penalty for your non-compliance of that action that you are supposed to do. So there is some mandatory disclosure that you are supposed to do. There is some disclosure that you are supposed to do every quarter, every 3 months you are supposed to update the progress of the project. There are certain fields on which you have to put out information. So those acts which are expected of the developer or maybe also a real estate agent, if he or she does not do that, then there are strict penalties provided in the act, and you are held responsible immediately for that. So that's the accountability. And the same accountability, as I was mentioning, should be there for all other stakeholders also. Because any act of omission or commission of any other stakeholder can affect the project. And the people who will get maximum affected by a project's slow movement or non-completion would be the home buyers and no one else. Maximum affecting them. So, third point was the accountability, fourth was compliance. There's huge importance given to complying with the various provisions of the Act. If you don't comply, then there are penalties prescribed, and penalties have been imposed, and that puts a deterrent on non-compliant behavior. And fifth, and most important, is customer centricity. All the actions that are there are in the interest to safeguard the interest of the home buyer who has put in the total money. So these 5 principles were something that were followed while we tried to bring in and implement the provisions of this Act. And therefore I feel that it did bring about a paradigm shift in the thinking process and in the implementation of this Act. The problem was that the Act was to deal with projects also. And it's a good thing because it said projects of the past which did not get completed, the Act should also try to see how to complete the project. So the basic tenet of this Act was that the Act should attempt to register a project to see that the project should be completed. Not only a new project which will come up after 2017, but even projects which were there maybe of 2007, 8, 9, 10, God knows when. But they still have not got completed. The developer was mandated to bring in that project also as an ongoing project and register the project, with the purpose of that you can be asking for a new timeline and you should be able to complete the project in that timeline. So that legacy project which was brought in has been an area which in this transition period of 5 years also was not able to tackle, because the problem of this sector was so large prior to 2016 that even with these provisions of the law, the legacy projects continues to be a pain point, and the pain is maximum felt again by the home buyers who are there associated. Again, to give you the example of something which was brought down, also had people in hundreds in those towers where monies were paid by them in 2006, 7, 8, and then they continued to wait till the High Court in Laram said that demolish it, and another 5 years, finally it was demolished. Still, people who had paid money have yet to get the money. Many may have got. But even getting back the money with even 10-12% interest does not suffice for that person who wants to go out today to buy a house, because with that money he will not be able to buy a house today. So ultimately, it is the project in which you were there. If you get the project completed, then I think you have got the real asset in hand. It's not encashing of that asset and putting it into money and giving it to you. So these were the concepts on which this has worked. But then there has been a problem still there. Out of these 14,000 ongoing projects in Maharashtra, I think not more than maybe 7,000-8,000 have got completed till now in these 5 years also. So it leaves us with good 6,000-7,000 projects which may be stressed, which may be 9,000, which are stressed, stalled, and causing innumerable hardships to the people. So that would be an area one will have to work to see how do we tackle that problem. Coming to the fifth point of that, if a person had a problem in the earlier regime, you did not know how do I get it resolved. That was tackled by this quasi-judicial authority created under RERA, which was expected that if you file a complaint, it should be an easy method of filing complaint, again in an online method, maybe an online hearing if it is possible. COVID expedited that, an online hearing process, and also an order which is issued in time so that you get justice. You may not be happy. You are unhappy with something. You have a question?
Yes. We didn't ask it later.
I don't mind.
So what is the average time for turnaround time for RERA? And the second question is
Oh, I have not completed it. So I'm on that. I've just come to that point. So essentially, the issue of grievance redressal, which should be again time is of essence there. As time is of essence of the project getting completed because the money is stuck there. Similarly, if there is a problem I have faced and I have not been given justice by the developer whom I have paid the money, then I should be able to get a decision in time. Now, the Act stipulates that within 2 months it should be done. If it is not done, then the order issued should actually specify as to why this delay has happened. There has been a delay there. To start with, of course, a lot of effort went in to see how to expedite that process. Effort was also made to bring in alternate dispute resolution mechanism, what we call DDR, called the conciliation, which was very successful again in Maharashtra, because 8 out of 10 cases that went for conciliation was getting resolved in a proper manner. But in the quasi-judicial also, with hearings taking place in the initial years, later on COVID added to the problem of the people, which also led to more complaints being filed. So today, as I speak here, maybe around 16,000-17,000 complaints would have been filed in Maharashtra, which is less than, of course, in UP, which has about 40,000. And out of 17,000-18,000 complaints, around 10,000-11,000 complaints have been disposed of, which leaves a staggering 6,000-7,000, which are still pending, which is again not a sustainable sort of a thing, and should not make anyone comfortable to live with, because that means that any new complaint which will get filed today will not get listed in 2 months. It's as simple as that. Because the person who has to hear those complaints will also be limited, with also vacancies arising, vacancies not getting filled in time maybe. So therefore, effort I think the present MahaSeWA is also doing is to see whether any complaint that arises can quickly, one see whether there is a possibility of a conciliation mechanism there, which if it fails, then it should be actually taken up in the quasi-judicial way, which I think is the correct method to take it forward. Because essentially, if by making the two disputing sides who have points of difference to sit across and understand with facilitation from maybe a conciliator or a conciliation bench, which comprises both a developer's representative and a consumer's representative. If that happens, it's good. I am told still, with this cases, all cases being asked to go through first conciliation still results in 60% getting resolved in a conciliatory manner, which again is a good figure. Now coming to these 10,000-11,000 complaints which were heard and decided, the point that you were raising, the question came up of non-compliance or non-execution of some of these orders which have been passed. One is of course the percentage of these 11,000 cases decided by RERA which ultimately ended up in an appellate tribunal was I think 10%. Okay, so even in these 11,000 cases to be disposed of, to my understanding at that point of time, around 50% of the cases where the two sides decided that yes, let's have a consent order by which we will get this. So obviously those 50% cases will not be taken to the further higher court. Among the other 50% also, there have been instances of both. One, cases where one party is unhappy and is taken into the appellate tribunal. Two, where neither the person has taken it to the appellate tribunal nor he has complied with the order, which is quite serious. Now that's another area to work on to see how execution of orders, because order is a quasi-judicial order, one should not allow that order to just remain and not getting executed also. So it's another area that as we speak, as to what are the hits and misses of the 5 years of RERA, I would feel that looking forward, we'll have to work areas as to see how do we resolve this of bringing down pendency, trying to prevail upon disputing parties to see that whether alternate dispute resolution mechanism like conciliation should be first attempted or not, how do we strengthen that, and two, where cases ultimately cannot get resolved in a conciliation, it comes to a quasi-judicial forum, how that decision making can be even faster to adhere to the timeline laid down in the Act, and once an order is passed, how do we ensure that it gets implemented fast. These are certainly the areas, because if we say and go back to what were the problems in the sector and what those problems have to be resolved through the new Act, this was certainly a problem then and should not remain as a new problem that should emerge out of implementation of RERA, I feel. So therefore, that will be another area that we have to look into. Now, coming to what all things I feel the implementation of the Act should bring in, it has already brought in transparency, it should bring in further transparency. And that is a mindset that a developer community has to get into. He is usually very happy in keeping information to himself. So how can he be brought into that level where he feels that the more I disclose, the more information I put out in the public domain, the better it is for me. Now that sort of a mindset will have to be brought into the developer community. I don't know how it will happen, but if that happens, it is good for the developer community also, I feel. Because the more transparent you are, the better it is for you, and at a later date, you will not face a problem that was faced in the recent Supreme Court order. The developer community and the consumer should look to see how do we build trust between the two communities. Because the consumer is one who is making maybe a one-time buy. It's a buy which in the whole lifetime, putting all his money and resources together, he is buying. If he is buying from a person who he doesn't trust, is something which is not a sustainable situation. And therefore, I felt that conciliation forum is certainly an area which tries to build trust. And trust building is the second T that should certainly be attempted by each one of us. Third T, of course, is, which was the pain of the past, of timely completion of a project. So if a time stipulation is given, well, taking a booking from a buyer and said that I will complete it in 3 years, 4 years time, it should be 4 years. If he feels that there are problems, he should say 5 years. But he should not say 2 years in order to attract the consumer and then end up in doing it in 5 years. That's something which used to happen in the past, to a large extent has been controlled. Today you will find developers also saying, at the peril of losing a consumer, because he puts out a date that I will complete a project in 7 years, he might not get a buyer. So he will have to make a business decision where he puts out a timeline which is reasonable enough, where he can complete it, and which also can attract a person, because all projects are out in the public domain. So a person today can make an informed choice. He is not dependent on someone who will come and say, oh, why don't you go and buy this house? This is a very good developer. He can actually access the website and get all the information there. More professionalism will now be required among developers, because they will have to now see that they have to become digitally proficient. And each of the professionals, the chartered accountants, the engineers, the architects who are working with the developer, each one of them, because all information is to be put out in the public domain, and the public is also getting more aware. So digital expediency and proficiency is something that will have to be brought in. A third stakeholder in the act is called the real estate agent. I had a feeling that the agent also should have a minimum threshold limit to actually become registered as an agent, because he is a most important cutting edge level who goes out to meet the buyer, to tell them about the good things about a project. And I feel that there should be some sort of a competency test that should be done. Maharashtra had started the exercise, but it has still not ended up in doing. Customer centricity would have to be putting the customer first, involving the customer in your decision making. Is another mindset change that will be required among developers. They will have to actually go out, and from the day they get the first customer, they will have to be treated not as a home buyer but as a home owner. A home owner is that he is becoming an equity partner in that project till the project gets completed. If you treat that person as a partner in the project, then your whole thinking process will change, and then you will say that all my information sharing has to happen with that person. Now, adopting alternate dispute resolution, as I already mentioned, that one will have to take it there, not only to bring down the pendency of grievances, but also to say that this is going to rebuild the trust deficit that has been creeping in. I'll end with these 2 points. The present functioning of RERAs across the country, or their efficacy, is being judged by RERA has registered how many projects, RERA has registered how many agents, RERA has disposed of how many complaints. I would feel that 2 more parameters must be added to the efficacy of a RERA. The first, I will take you back to, if RERA is intended to register project with the purpose to see that the project should get completed, then it should also monitor and should put out in public domain how many projects registered today have crossed the stipulated timeline, have still not been completed. Now that is a data that has to be monitored, and one has to see as to how do we bring down that number, so that more and more projects get completed in time. 1. And 2, as I mentioned, that grievance redressal has to be timely. And if suppose that's not happening, so merely saying that we have disposed of say 1 lakh cases in the country does not suffice. If that 1 lakh is out of 2 lakh cases filed, then that's not a happy situation. So I think what should be monitored also is how many cases are pending and for how long. So I think I will stop here. I have given you the basic broad parameters of this, and I would love to have questions from you. Yes, please. Condition rate meaning?
Execution.
Penalties are imposed, or he stated that you return this money and this much money along with interest and that. The non-execution of the orders out of these 11,000 cases would be what about? It will be 500. Why will you be happy with an imprisonment? Why are you trying to go back to a system where you feel very happy that the poor person is put in? Let me complete. I have understood your problem. trying to say, please get out of this mindset. As I am telling you, developer should get out of a mindset, you should also get out of this mindset. Don't be happy that he's imprisoned. If TK Kulkarni is imprisoned, do you imagine that 10,000 buyers are out on the street? Because by putting that person behind the bar, the 10,000 homes could not get completed. So the idea is to see how do I penalize him, bring him back on track, make him function, so that you get your home. I would look at that. RERA, at least the MahaSeWA portal, is totally anonymous. In fact, a developer who makes an application for getting a registration, he can track his application to see how his application is moving in level 1, level 2, level 3. He doesn't require to know as to where or who is actually assessing my application, and sitting at home he gets a digitally signed certificate. So I think there cannot be any more user-friendly registration process than is followed in Maharashtra.
Engineering also the same way should be internal process and automatic without any human touch. To know all the aspects which you suggested.
No, software actually brings out all these data that I am mentioning to you is coming out of that only. That software itself throws up as to how many developers have not updated quarterly reports. The RERA also has created what is called as a self-regulatory organization. Mr. Anand Gupta is also a member of that, which means the developers' bodies, which are either under a CREDAI or a NAREDCO or a builders association or any other association, is also pointed out that these are your members who don't seem to be complying with the provisions. So you please tell them before we impose penalty on them.
That means rules have to be accordingly described. We'll take care of this issue, not install and all this for the follow-up.
That's right. They are prescribed, they are already there, but ultimately you see no system can be better than the person who runs it. Let's not forget that. Even if suppose you are saying that the system is running on its own, but I don't think there is any system that runs on its own. There is someone. He, to a large extent, his discretion or dependence on him to give out the information can be taken away through software. But ultimately, the system will have to be run. Let's accept that.
Systemic failures we have.
No, did you not face the same income tax trial in the portal where Infosys brought in this new thing? Lot of people face this problem of there were glitches. Now the glitches although has to be sorted out by a person who will have to set right the system. Similarly here also in Maharashtra, there would be glitches. Like in fact after 5 years, the new real estate agents had to come back to get their renewal. The renewal was not happening initially, but then those glitches were removed. So what I am saying is that ultimately the system has to be very good. The person who is running the system, at least at the helm of the affairs, also has to be aware as to what is going wrong and should take corrective measures immediately. I think that's the solution.
So,
Yeah, you can have the question.
so just to expand on your suggestion for increasing the net for the stakeholders, would you see that the BMC and their engineers and all also being accountable?
That's right.
Because what is happening is
That's
many
right.
times all bidders are also dependent on
That's
you
right.
know getting support from them. And many a times if things don't work as per the engineer's requirement, fines go into cold storage.
Yeah.
So how does that, how do you gap that?
No, exactly, that's the point I mentioned. That this is an act which has now stayed with us for 5 years. It's time that we should go back to some of the provisions of the act to see how we strengthen it further. And this section 37 of the act, which talks about that the authority, the real estate authority, can only issue directions to a developer or an agent or maybe a home buyer. But then, if there are other stakeholders, most importantly, the one whose approvals or whose decision or whose acts of omission and commission can actually mark the project is someone who has to be made accountable. And therefore, I feel that that accountability has to be brought into the system, wherein the person who does not take his decision in time or is taking wrong decision should also be held accountable. So I think that will be an amendment that will be required to the act. And I personally feel that the amendment is necessary. The second thing I was strongly feeling, I was just discussing before this meeting, is that when a project, everything is going fine, the developer, you are getting the money from the buyers, buyers are also buying in the project, money is coming in, there is liquidity, project is completed, good, hunky-dory. But then every time it doesn't happen so. Even in a new regime, for a new project, it might so happen that there are no buyers coming, or some project decision gets stuck, I go to the coincidence that you mentioned, it can happen. If such a situation happens and the decision does not get taken in time and the project becomes stressed and stalled, how do you put it back on track? Now, the provision in the Act states that the putting back on track is that the authority will talk to the Association of Home Buyers and see how the balance work can be completed. But you cannot only take a decision to complete the balance work by keeping the other stakeholders out. Other stakeholders meaning that there will be a landowner who might have stakes in the project. There will certainly be a financial institution, a bank, or any other investor who is putting money and who has also charged on the unsold flats. So I feel that is another very important aspect of the Act which has been missed out. You see, when the IBC, Insolvency Code, was brought in, it had talked about that any financial creditor has a problem, he will raise the matter in NCLT. But then soon they realized that for the real estate sector, the home buyer who has put in money, maybe 50-60% of the money the home buyer has given, and the financial institution maybe have given only 20-30%. But still, the IBC was giving a preference only to the financial institution, but they amended that. And they brought the home buyers also at par with the financial creditor. Similarly, I think here in the RERA Act, you have to bring in that financial institution who has also the first charge on the project to be also a part of the association of allottees. Maybe a deemed allottee, because that flat unsold is mortgaged to him and he has put in money there. So he will also have to, if he has to put in more money, he should put in more money to see that the project is complete. So these are some of these things which I feel also discussion should take place and should strengthen the Act further. And the Act will become more successful if we are able to create more awareness among the consumer at large. Even today, maybe we have been able to create an awareness for the home buyer that if you are buying a home, please ensure that it's a RERA registered project. Merely being a RERA registered project and knowledge of the RERA number is not sufficient. He will also have to be told that please access the website, web portal, see the web page, see the credential of the developer, see in the past how he has done, see the litigations that are there in the project, see the number of complaints that have been filed. All this information is there. But unfortunately, I think not much effort has gone in to make aware the public at large that this is the way you should go. There is more awareness about the income tax portal, but less awareness about it.
Sir, any mechanism to check the authenticity of the
Mechanism is that if you put it out in the public domain, then it is expected that the people who are the affected person. No, you have to be aware. Don't expect that the RERA authority before actually putting out the information to do a checking. If you are doing that, you are entering into creating another monster of a building proposal department. Mark my words. If before registering the project you give so much of power, then I will not register a project because I first check all the information. What is happening may be few RERAs. Then in that case you are entering. The thing is to create more awareness, ensuring that whatever is mandated must be put out in the proper format. I am not saying that that should not be checked. The legal information, the litigation information, all the information has to be there. What is the meaning of verification? You verify that it's a legal document. It's a legal title document. That is certainly you see. It's not something else that is done. If you are putting out his PAN number, if you are putting out all the other details, you do check. If you are putting out the commencement certificate, then you see that it is a commencement certificate. But you don't do that. I will first go to the DMC to check whether this commencement certificate has been issued by you or not. That's the point I am making. That will be a too dangerous attack. Tagging should be done. Basically, digitally, the organization should talk to each other in such a manner that immediately you should be able to do that. And that's possible. That's what is digital. That's right. That's right. That's right. So essentially, it has to be where the information is just put a click, and then you know that yes, this is something it's registered there, or it is there in the land records, or it is there in the BMC portal. That's how it should be.